So you might have heard before, just clean up the diet, remove the gluten and dairy. But this video is different to 99% of all that you've probably seen. Although those statements are pretty correct, it is also not just that simple, and I'll explain in this video why. I'm going to cover a lot in this video. It's a lot. So go slow and maybe come back and watch this video 2 or 3 times to get it all in so you can successfully action these steps to help your child's eczema. So first, analyze the hidden ingredients. Always read the labels for hidden sources of these triggers, as they're frequently tucked away in soups, gravies, or conventional bread products. In manufacturing world, there's a large part of the food in the supermarket in boxes and packets, and they're sneaky. The companies use ingredients like concentrated grape juice, whey, casein, lecithin. While these sound harmless, they're often just variations of sugars, milk, or soy products that could be making it worse. Even if a box doesn't say sugar or milk, these derivatives can trigger the same immune reaction in sensitive children. So in an eczema-prone child, the immune system is hypervigilant and it's trying to protect the body, and unfortunately it got a little too effective. It's working well, but not what we want. So when it detects every tiny little trace protein or strange compound, it thinks it's a threat like gluten or dairy, and it sounds an alarm. This triggers an immune response and it travels through the bloodstream, and it ends up in manifesting in the red itchy skin and swellings on the skin. So there's also cross-contamination issues in boxed or packet foods. Many foods are processed in the same factories and on the same machines. A bag of plain potato chips might actually have traces of wheat or egg residual from the previous food run in that factory. For a child that's highly sensitive, this microscopic amount is enough to disrupt the skin barrier, which it's already struggling to stay healthy. There's also broad terms on labels, like you might see terms like natural flavors or modified starch. These are vague labels on the labels, and they're hidden cocktail of chemical additives. So these substances can change the gut environment and make it harder for the body to digest those nutrients effectively in the foods. Those things are affecting it, and they irritate the gut, and then they're going to irritate the skin. Another reason to analyze the hidden ingredients is because of cumulative effect. A child might not have a massive reaction to one tiny packet food or ingredient, but they're eating those in different foods, and the cereals, their lunch bread, their after school snack, and the total inflammation in their body climbs up and accumulates. Eventually this hits a threshold, causing a major eczema flare-up. Keep a strict food diary, because triggers are highly individual. Maintaining a log of exactly what your child eats and when their skin flares up is the most effective way to identify the specific culprits and foods affecting their unique biology. Keeping a food diary is your most powerful detective tool when you're trying to manage eczema. You got to be a detective. So because every child's immune system reacts differently on different triggers, there's no one size fits all. And there's no one size list of food problems. A food diary takes the guesswork out of the process by providing clear data for you right in front of you. Here's how to do it effectively. Be detailed, not broad. Don't just write lunch, write homemade burgers with ground beef and spices and specific spices, lettuce and mustard. And the more detail you include, the easier it is to spot hidden triggers later. Track the delay window. Eczema isn't always an immediate reaction like peanut allergy. A flare-up can last anywhere from a few days to 48 hours, 74 hours. It can go on for a long time. And you might not notice it on the Wednesday, but then you look back, oh, hold on, it was Monday or it was Sunday. It was that breakfast with the omelette. So note severity. Use a simple scale on the skin's conditions, like put a 1 or a 5, 1 to 5, like 1's really clear and 5's really raw and bleeding. That can be a good gauge as well to help you see actually how it was with that food. Record everything, include snacks, drinks, supplements, even vitamins. Many chewable vitamins have artificial colors or soy-based binders that can absolutely trigger a reaction. Document context. Sometimes it isn't just the food. Keep a column notes on the side to track other factors like emotional stress. High stress periods can weaken the gut lining. Environmental triggers. Did they play in the grass? for example, or a dusty room. Sometimes the skin flares in contact-based, not the food base. Monitor egg consumption. Eggs are frequently a culprit in pediatric skin issues. The whites in particular, they contain proteins that the immature immune systems of many children struggle to process, leading to hives or rashes. The proteins in eggs, specifically those found in egg whites, like ovonucleoid or ovuloleumin, they're sometimes the most common allergens in children. These proteins are biologically complex, and in some children the digestive system does not break them down completely. When these partially digested proteins enter the bloodstream through the leaky gut, the immune systems mark them as invaders, and they release chemicals like histamine that lead to itchy skin, heat in the skin, and inflammation. I mentioned on sensitivity versus allergy distinction. Your child doesn't need to have a life-threatening EpiPen level reaction to be sensitive to eggs. Many children with eczema have a non-IgE mediated sensitivity. The reaction isn't immediate, dramatic swelling throat, but a slow building inflammation response that shows up on the skin 24 to 72 hours later. This makes it easy to overlook, and the parents may not connect the Wednesday rash to the Sunday morning omelette with veggies or mushrooms. Now, monitoring the egg consumption goes far beyond avoiding fried eggs, scrambled eggs, and that. Eggs are a foundation ingredient in modern food manufacturing. You might find egg derivatives in breads and baked goods because they use them as binders and structure. Mayonnaise and salad dressings. It's used as an emulsifier. Pasta and noodles, many commercial pastas use added egg. And breaded meat, think things like chicken nuggets, which kids love, or fish sticks. They're the glue that hold those breads together around it. Sauces and dips as well, they use them to thicken the texture. Watch for artificial additives. Synthetic dyes such as red 40, yellow 5. They're artificial preservatives in candy, and they brighten coloured drink. They affect youngsters. Synthetic food dyes like red 40, yellow 5, blue 1, they're derivatives from petroleum. They're essentially industrial chemicals that they're used to make cereals, candy, and sports drinks look fun for the kids. There is strong evidence linking these dyes to increased histamine release in the body. When your child's body releases excess histamine, it causes itching. From a child's eczema, that itch leads to scratching, of course, and then that damages the skin barrier, and it creates a cycle which is very difficult to break. Then there's also the preservatives like sodium benzoate or BHA or BHT in many packet foods. They're used to keep the processed foods on the shelf for months or even years. Your child's gut is supposed to be the gatekeeper of their health. It keeps those large particles and chemicals out of your bloodstream. Now, some research suggests that those artificial preservatives that I mentioned, they increase gut permeability, that leaky gut. When the gut becomes leaky, those synthetic chemicals, along with partially digested food proteins, they slip into the bloodstream. And this creates systemic inflammation that your child's body then tries to offload onto other elimination organs. You got it, the skin. If it's trying to calm the eczema flare up, use the 5 ingredient rule. Easy. So ingredients you can't pronounce, put it back on the shelf. Or if there's more than 5 ingredients, put it back on the shelf. Like colors, artificial colors. Yellow 5, red 40, color 122. Preservatives BHA, BHT, TBHQ, sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate. Sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose, acetylcholine K, they're all disruptors of the gut microbiome, which is critical for the skin health. Parents often ask, but there's only a little bit, it's food dye, it's a party or something, they're just a little bit. Does it really matter? For a child with eczema, the immune system is already primed and it's reactive and it's on high alert. Exposing children to these chemicals throughout the day in their school lunches, drinks, or their snacks, even on the weekend, keeps their inflammation levels constantly elevated and going. By removing these additives entirely, you're effectively lowering the noise, and then the child's immune system can actually return to a state of balance. Prioritize dairy elimination. I mentioned that at the beginning. So for a child dealing with chronic eczema, prioritizing dairy elimination, it's the single most effective dietary change. It is true, cow's milk is frequently at the top of the list for potential allergens, and for many children, it's the primary driver of the systemic inflammation, and it manifests as that itchy red skin. So here's the science behind what dairy can do to the child's body and eczema. So cow's milk protein contains 20 different proteins that the human immune system can't potentially identify, and that's considered foreign. So two major players are casein and whey. So the problem is that these proteins are significantly more complex than proteins found in human breast milk. An infant or a young child's gut lining, which is still developing, can sometimes allow these large inact protein molecules, and they leak through, and then you got it into the bloodstream, immune reaction. The result is that immune system detects these proteins in the blood, mounts a defense, and releases inflammatory chemicals like histamine, the cytokines, which reduces in more dry and itchy skin. In naturopathic health framework, dairy is also often described as a mucogenic. That means it promotes the production of mucus. While this is most commonly associated with congestion or ear issues in children, it also affects the digestive tract. When the gut is lined with excess mucus, it can impair the proper absorption of nutrients, leading to a state of digestive stress. A stressed gut is almost always reflected in a stressed skin barrier. Conventional dairy is loaded with bioactive hormones. Hormones like IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. And because cow's milk is biological purpose is to help the calf grow, not humans. When humans consume it, it can stimulate inflammatory pathways in the skin and even influence a child's production of sebum, the oil. From a child who's already compromised skin barrier and it's affecting the sebum, and the hormones signaling can disrupt the normal turnover of the skin cells and increase severe inflammation flare-ups. Number 6, identify gluten sensitivity. When discussing eczema, gluten is often misunderstood as a villain. Oh, gluten's bad, gluten-free. Like dairy, gluten is a complex protein that many children, especially with developing sensitive digestive systems, often struggle to process. Identifying gluten sensitivity is crucial because gluten isn't just one thing. It's a family of proteins found in grains like wheat, barley, and rye. And here is the science of why it matters for your child's skin. The primary science behind gluten eczema is gluten contains gliadin, and it's in sensitive individuals. Gliadin triggers the body to produce a substance called zonulin. Zonulin's like a key that unlocks the gaps in the intestine where the absorption happens, but it makes it wide. And just like many other food triggers, the body's immune system goes in red alert and attacks that foreign body, and then the result, eczema flare up. Gluten is used by food manufacturers as a glue to give bread and pastries and snacks that elasticity and beautiful softness and chewy texture. Because it's so effective at keeping food together, it shows up where you wouldn't expect, like soy sauce. Most soy sauce contains wheat, and thickeners in soups and gravies. Flour is almost always the thickener. Processed meats as well, like deli meats and sausages, they put that wheat-based starch as a filler or a binder. Certain vitamins or supplements, wheat-based fillers or coatings, are surprisingly common in a lot of cheap supplements. A little note on testing for gluten. Many doctors rely on standard blood test for celiac disease. However, a child can be highly sensitive to gluten without having celiac disease. These children won't show up on a standard celiac test, so they'll say it's negative or good, but they are still reacting and their skin has got the inflammation, or they've got the brain fog or digestive discomfort when they eat wheat. So limit processed soy as well. Soy is a common hidden ingredient in processed snacks. It contains phytoestrogens and anti-nutrients that cause disruption in the hormone balance, and they aggravate the skin reactions. Why soy is often marketed as a healthy alternative to dairy? The truth is that the processed soy is very different from the fermented soy traditionally consumed in some cultures, which is far more healthy. And soy also contains high levels of isoflavonoids, which are plant-based compounds that mimic the human hormone estrogen. Because a child's hormone system is still developing, flooding it with large amounts of exogenous, that's external estrogens, can interfere with their hormones, and that hormone shift can trigger immune responses and change the way the skin produces sebum, that's that oil, and maintain its barrier, often making inflammatory conditions like eczema much more difficult to control. Soy is naturally designed to defend itself against being eaten in the wild. So it contains anti-nutrients called protease inhibitors. These compounds literally inhibit, they block the enzymes in your child needed to break down its own proteins in their stomach. That impedes that whole system and process, and the gut can lead to inflammation and irritation, as we've discussed before, and the skin flare-ups. The vast majority of conventional soy grown in the world is genetically modified, GMO, and heavily sprayed with herbal glyphosate. Glyphosate is known to act as an antibiotic in the gut, meaning it suppresses the healthy gut bacteria, the microbiome it's called, and you need that to keep your immune system strong. A healthy microbiome is the first line of defense for the skin, and there's that gut-skin axis and the chemical residual in food, and that affects the immune system and it becomes prone to overreacting to minor triggers. Soy is almost always a hidden in the foods, and processed soy is virtually impossible to avoid unless you're buying unprocessed food. You will find it in things like soy lecithin on the labels. This is used as an emulsifier in foods like cereals, chocolates, cookies. Stop eating those. You have to stop eating those foods completely. Soybean oil. This is the most common thing that people eat in salad dressing, mayonnaise, restaurant fried food. Textured vegetable protein, the TVP. It's in the fake meats. Natural flavors, soy-derived proteins. They're often based from many synthetic flavorings in foods. Even if you avoid soy protein itself, your child's still likely consuming the soybean oil. So soybean oil is extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids. While we do need some omega-6 fatty acids, the modern diet is way overloaded with them. A high intake in omega-6 oils encourage the body to produce inflammatory chemicals. When your body is in that inflammatory state, your skin, that's the largest organ in your body, is the first place where you'll notice the trouble. Now, I think I should give you a bonus. At this point, I've given you those 7, but I'm going to give you a bonus as well. Avoid refined sugars. High intake of processed sugars increase systemic inflammation, and it spikes insulin, both of which can weaken the skin barrier and prolong healing times in patches of eczema. So many foods, we hear about don't eat too much sugar, but many foods I've discussed to avoid before, they have a high sugar load. While sometimes it's not a direct adding of refined sugars to the food, it can simply be a high amount of high carbohydrate load, which is essentially converted to sugar quickly. It could also be hidden names like maltodextrin, high fructose corn syrup, cane syrup, or concentrated juice extracts. High levels of insulin are inherently pro-inflammatory, and this chronic recurring spike in insulin signals the body to produce inflammatory cytokines. These chemicals don't just stay in the blood, they circulate through the whole body and they land in the skin, exacerbating existing eczema patches and causing intense throbbing itching. That's what causes that. So sugars also steal minerals. To process and metabolize refined sugars, the body has to borrow minerals, specifically magnesium, zinc, and B vitamins from its own stores. So zinc is definitely the most important one for a child's body to use that to manage and repair the skin. But it has to use that zinc for the high sugar, so then it gets depleted quickly. And rebuilding that skin barrier is more difficult if it doesn't have enough. Sugar also attaches to proteins and fats in your child's body. And when excess sugar is floating around, it binds to proteins and fats that are called in that process glycination. And this creates advanced glycination end products. They're also called AGEs. And These structures damage the collagen and the elastin in the skin, and that's the scaffolding in the skin. The AGEs make the skin more prone to inflammation and less capable of healing, and this is why eczema flare-ups is in a sugar-heavy diet. It leads to much longer, difficult cases. Sugar also plays a part in the nervous system and the hormone cortisol. When the blood sugar drops in extreme high sugar, the body responds by releasing cortisol to help stabilize the blood sugar. While cortisol, it is necessary in small amounts, chronic spikes in the cortisol, they make the eczema worse. So high cortisol suppresses the immune system's ability to function properly, and it weakens the skin's defense. We need to get rid of that. So skin makes and sugar makes it all worse. I'm confident that if you follow these steps, you can start to see noticeable improvements in your child's skin. Of course, making these changes aren't just going to be it all. There are other parts as well. They're a very valuable part, but there's more to learn. I want you to subscribe to the channel to keep on learning and watch this next video right here.